The hospital hallway was eerily quiet, except for the occasional murmur of nurses and the rhythmic beeping of machines from the patient rooms. Emily walked with slow, hesitant steps, her heart pounding in her chest. Her fingers gripped the leash of a golden retriever, Max, who seemed to sense that something was very wrong. She wiped the tears that threatened to spill over. The doctors had told her to prepare for the inevitable. Her father, Robert Thompson, had been unconscious for 2 days, and his body was shutting down. They said it was time to say goodbye. But how could she? How could Max? As they reached the door, Emily knelt beside Max, running her fingers through his soft golden fur. "Max," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I know you don't understand all of this, but Dad loves you. And I know you love him, too. Just let him know you're here, okay?" Max's deep brown eyes searched hers, as if trying to understand her pain. Then, he gave her a gentle lick on the cheek, as if to say, "I'll do my best." Emily took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the only sound coming from the monitors keeping track of her father's weak heartbeat. The sight of him nearly broke her. He looked so frail, so different from the strong, energetic man she had grown up with. The nurse, a kind woman named Margaret, glanced up from her chart. She gave Emily a sympathetic smile. "You got special permission," she whispered. "Just for Max. We don't usually allow animals in here, but, given the circumstances," the doctor agreed. "He deserves a proper goodbye." Emily nodded, unable to speak. Max, however, didn't need an invitation. He immediately pulled toward the bed, his nails clicking against the cold floor. As soon as he reached the side, he rested his head on the mattress, his ears perked, his eyes locked on Mr. Thompson's face. Emily swallowed hard. "Dad," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Max is here." There was no response. Her father remained still, his chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. Max whined and nudged his nose against the old man's arm. "Come on, Dad," Emily whispered, taking his frail hand and placing it on Max's head. "Just one more time." The room remained silent. Max let out a low whimper and then, suddenly, he did something unexpected. He jumped onto the bed. Emily gasped. "Max, no. Be gentle." But instead of just lying down, Max did something even more shocking. He began licking Mr. Thompson's face. Emily's heart clenched. "Max, baby, I don't think he can feel," then, a sound. A deep, raspy breath. Emily froze. A second later, her father's fingers twitched against Max's fur. Then, a cracked, barely audible whisper, "Max?" Emily's hands flew to her mouth as her eyes widened. "Dad," she stammered, not daring to believe what she had just heard. Max barked joyfully, his tail wagging so hard that the entire bed shook. Mr. Thompson's eyelids fluttered, his fingers tightening weakly around Max's fur. His breathing, which had been slow and shallow, became stronger. Margaret, the nurse, nearly dropped her clipboard. "Oh my God," she whispered. Emily let out a sob. "Dad, you're awake." Mr. Thompson slowly turned his head toward her. His blue eyes, though weak, were filled with warmth. "How could I sleep, with all this noise?" he mumbled, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Emily laughed through her tears, clutching her father's hand. "You have no idea how much I missed hearing your voice." Max climbed further onto the bed, nuzzling his head against his owner's chest. Mr. Thompson let out a weak chuckle, his hand trembling as he stroked the golden retriever's back. Did you bring me back, boy?" he murmured. Max barked as if answering, his tail still wagging wildly. The door swung open as Dr. Lewis rushed inside, his expression stunned. "What on earth?" He stared at his patient in shock. "Mr. Thompson, you weren't responding to anything before. This is incredible. Mr. Thompson gave a tired but amused glance at his doctor. Guess I just needed my best friend. The doctor looked between Emily, Max, and Mr. Thompson before shaking his head in disbelief. This isn't medically explainable. His vitals were fading. We thought he wouldn't wake up again. But he did, Emily whispered, stroking Max's back. Because of Max. For the next hour, nurses and doctors came in, astonished at what had happened. Mr. Thompson's condition was still fragile, but it was stabilizing. His heart rate improved. His breathing strengthened. And all the while, Max refused to leave his side, curling up against him, as if willing him to stay alive. As the night went on, Emily sat beside the bed, watching her father and his beloved dog. You really scared me, you know, she murmured. Her father gave her a tired smile. Scared myself a little, too. Then, he looked down at Max, his fingers still buried in the golden fur. But I wasn't ready to leave just yet. Max let out a content sigh, closing his eyes, still nestled against Mr. Thompson's chest. The hospital staff called it a miracle. The doctors had no explanation. But Emily didn't need one. She knew exactly what had happened. Max hadn't come to say goodbye. He had come to bring his best friend back. The end.